Record.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay.
Good,
Hello,
yeah.
Michelle. Good afternoon.
Hi. Hi, nice to see you, Peter.
So we're going to have a go, and for
Yes.
in my case, it's the first time I've tried this. We're going to have a go at a sort of podcast
Hmm.
where we have a conversation about a common event that or a common period of time that we went through. So just to explain to our huge audience that I'm sure will be watching this. We used to work together in Khartoum at Kix in Sudan until the 15th of April 2023, which is a sort of date very much stamped on our minds. And sort of that changed everything. So we had to evacuate. We won't go through all that. We eventually got out to Egypt, and then we were able to book flights out. So we're up to about the 25th of April, something like that. So basically, this story is from then for the following year. So, sort of April to April. What did we do? What was going through our minds? What did we try? What did we fail at? What? So, all of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start it off? Take us from that moment you're actually sort of flying out. If you did fly out, I
Sure.
guess you did,
Yeah, we
flying
did.
out of Egypt.
So we wanted to go to South Africa actually because Paul, my husband's from South Africa, and we were still trying to stay online for our students and our teachers. And that was a better time zone than me going to New Zealand. So our friends said we were going via Dubai, and they said, well, why don't you stop in Oman on the way? And so we did. And we stayed for 2 or 3 nights with our friends that we'd worked with before in Soha. And of course, we had no jobs. And they said to me, oh, Michelle, the school's looking for a maths coach. Why don't you come and talk to the head of school? And because of my background working with concept-based inquiry maths, I said, oh, yeah, sure, why not? And of course, I put on my best pair of jeans and a top, the best top I had. As you know, we only had one bag coming out of Sudan. And off I trot to ABA Oman International School. And 2 hours later, I said to my husband, oh, I think I've got a job. And so I got a job as a maths coach at ABA, which was such a relief at the time to know we had something to go to. Then we went on to Dubai and we used our medical insurance while we could, while we still had it. And then we went to South Africa, and then on to New Zealand. So while we were in South Africa, we were there for 5 weeks and it let me be online as the primary principal. You have to be online for your teachers, have to be online for our parents, our students. Of course, lots of them couldn't connect. Everyone was just scattered. But for those that could connect, we wanted to provide some, no, I wouldn't say normalcy because it's not normal, even though we'd been through it with COVID, but just a place where people could meet and see a familiar face. As you know, Peter, I do jump jam, and so
Yes.
I did some of that as well. And we got kids and we got teachers, and it was really nice just to see people, even though the situation that had brought us to this place was a pretty bad one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was sort of the first three
So
months, I
this
guess.
yeah, that took you up to like August or something.
Yeah. And so, yeah, then we went home to New Zealand to see my family because, of course, everyone's families want to see you,
Yeah.
even though they know you're safe. So we went home to New Zealand. Oh, in the meantime, we did a 2 week trip of Uganda with some friends from New Zealand that we'd already booked before the war started. So we did that, which was amazing. Hard to relax, but amazing. And then we went home to New
Yeah,
Zealand for a month.
tell me more about that, the sort of that sort of turmoil-y sort of feeling, if you like. I mean, I guess, because you and Paul had both sort of been through it, if you like, together, it made
Mm.
sense to each of you. But did you find that when you well, how did you get into trying to explain anything to anybody else? I mean, when you're telling the story.
Yeah, I think it was really hard at the time because you're still dealing with all the emotions that come with it. Like loud noises or yelling or sudden bangs or things like that. Like I didn't sleep very well at all for probably 4 or 5 months. Even less so when we were in South Africa, because of course Paul's parents, there's barbed wire around all the houses and alarm systems and all sorts of things like that. So they'd be going off, I'd be jumping up and going,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, it's just
Yeah.
the alarm, it's a monkey or something like that." So, no, it was pretty challenging, to be honest. And I think at that time, not really, you don't know your feelings enough to share them. Like you could tell people what happened, but it's not the same as the emotional side of it. I guess though the people that know you well knew you weren't. We lost a lot of weight. We
Mm.
looked a bit hollow-eyed. Um,
You lost
but
weight.
I did.
That's
Don't
ridiculous.
worry, I put it back on.
Go on,
Yeah,
I'll have a
yeah.
go.
How
I'll just
about you?
because some of that very much resonates, especially the
Mm,
triggering bit, with
yeah,
planes it was for me. Anyway, I'll come to that. I've made myself a note. So
yeah,
yeah, in the immediate aftermath, in those 2 or 3 days, so we went pretty much straight back to our house in Coventry, where we've got all our kids are, not in the house, but dotted around nearby. Stephen came to pick us up, so that was all sort of euphoric. It was a brilliant sort of thing to get back, and then it was an awful lot of WhatsApping and emailing and all that too, because we still had people at the border, as you know, the Filipino group.
yeah.
And I've just been watching myself, I did a recording of myself on a walk, just talking to myself. And it was really quite interesting to listen to it because I'd forgotten. There was the Amanda situation as well that was
Oh,
clearly
yeah.
on my mind because in this little clip, I said, yeah, I woke up at 2 in the morning, couldn't think of anything else. And I could hear, on my voice was just like a mess, it was on this walk. And yeah, there was that problem trying to get her across the border because of the Burkina Faso problem. So that was a big issue. So in those first few days, I was very embroiled in that, and sort of I felt like half of me was still at the border, if you like. So there was that, and then of course there was the board. I was in touch with quite a bit. And then we were trying to get online teaching going, as you said. So then that became, well, do we try and do an assembly or something? And these sorts of things.
And we
Oh, so
did.
that we
We
did, and
did.
we did an
Darwin.
awards ceremony of
We
some
did.
sort, didn't we?
We
Yeah.
did. I've still got a recording
So
somewhere.
so that must have been in May,
Mm,
fairly early May, I think, because we decided to close. We were going to try and keep going to the end of May online, and it's like, well,
right.
less than half the kids and probably less than half the teachers were actually online. So it was all a bit like, well, this is silly. So we did that assembly and then sort of shut the school. Um,
Yeah.
so then after that, then yeah, well, actually before that, the thing you said about the noises or whatever,
Mm,
for me, it was when we were sitting in the back garden of my son's house, who lives nearby, and we're having I think a glass of champagne or something ridiculous, and a plane went overhead, and
yeah.
the sound of the plane, and I thought, and that did it for me because what we'd spent quite a while doing for the previous week, as you know, I was on campus and I was often out
Mm,
walking around the campus because there were people. We had a couple of families stuck there with us as well,
yeah.
so I was often going to check on them to get them food and stuff. And so whenever I was out, very often you used to hear a plane. And so it wasn't
Mm,
sometimes shooting and explosions, but there used to be quite a quiet time, usually in the middle of the day. And then a plane used to come over quite frequently. It was some sort of reconnaissance plane, and it was the only
yeah.
thing in the sky, of course. We never really
Mm,
knew what it was. And so then the noise of that really was like, oh, it's a plane. And then that just brought it all back. So that was yeah, that was very much what it was like while school was on. And then I don't know, that feeling probably persisted for quite a while, that sort of triggering of that. It was that noise that tended to bring it back. So yeah, anyway, got into the swing of things in Coventry a bit, sort of, okay, what am I going to do? There was a lot of that. Oh, am I retired now? I mean, that's the
Yes.
stage I was at. It's like, well, this is a year earlier than I thought it would be, because that was the plan actually, to sort of either change jobs, but more likely at that point to just retire, essentially. So,
Mm.
yeah, there was all that going on in my mind. And so got an allotment, started
Yeah.
digging the allotment. I did an awful lot of, well, not an awful lot of, well, I've said it twice now. We can cut that bit out. The
Okay.
um, trying to get other teachers jobs,
Yeah.
basically, and doing
Yeah.
what I could with that. So I was doing an awful lot of, I've said it again, an awful lot of posting jobs to our teachers because we all still had Google Drive and everything, so I could put all sorts of stuff in there. So we had a jobs board going on, and so I was
Mm.
in touch with quite a lot of heads around the world, and search associates were fabulous. Um, and I was actually, pushing these jobs to people that I knew the email addresses of. I mean, obviously I knew the Kix ones, but a lot of people had stopped using those. So yeah, that went on and on as well through the July and into August. Around August as well is when, apart from the allotment, I started doing online tutoring. I think that was August, September, something like that, some physics tutoring, things like that. And that actually snowballed. I started doing more and more of that. I was up to like 10 hours a week, and then I had a whole online class as
Mm.
well that sort of took me into the winter, where I'd had a regular class. There were 7 or 8 kids in a physics class in somewhere, Hungary, I think it was. And so I taught them as a teacher online for months, it turned out to be, right through until the following April. So there was that going on. Oh, yeah, just going to step back to June. So in June, I was contacted by somebody from the Aga Khan Academy group, which is the AKGN network or whatever. And he was basically a recruiter for them, and said, "Are you interested in a job in Maputo, which
Right.
is Mozambique?" And I thought, well, you'd be right next door to it. You were probably just close by in South Africa. I went through South Africa to get there. So they flew me out because
Mm.
I was
Wow.
intrigued. I don't know where my head was. Definitely
Yeah.
didn't know that. But anyway, they said, well, we'll fly you out and you can come and have a look at the campus. So I went there and spent a week, loved it, thought it
Wow.
was a lovely place. They showed me the house I might be living in and all this sort of
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, oh God. And I spoke to the faculty and we had a thing, the question and answer session, and thought that these all felt very familiar, felt very good, like the whole style of the place. Talked to a princess,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Aga Khan's daughter. So I was interviewed by her in Dubai airport on the way back.
Yeah.
She was a very sharp lady. And also HR, I spoke to them as well after
Mm.
I'd been to the school. And when I got back, I thought, so back to Coventry, I just thought, I can't step into another school. Not that I'd been offered it, and I might not have been offered it, but I thought, no, I can't do that. I just can't jump into another school right now.
Yeah.
So I wrote to the guy who originally got me to go out and said, no, I'm not going to go ahead. Even
Yeah.
if you want me now, I don't want to go ahead.
Yeah.
And this was all part of my, there was lots of
Well,
stuff going on, and I
lots
thought,
going on, right?
but what I did know was I just wasn't ready to commit to another school and jump into something else,
Mm.
on the other side of the world, sort of thing. I thought, no, I'm just not ready for that. So anyway, that was a little thing that happened in June. So apart
Mm.
from that, have I got anything else? Well, there was some coaching going on as well. So I was doing a little bit of coaching, but not much until sort of November, December when the sort of job fair season began. And
Mm.
then after Christmas, that first Christmas back, went off to the job fair, search job fair in London. I was invited there by Jez Hayden to be a candidate advisor, and it was absolutely brilliant. Because I met an awful lot of people. All the heads and everything were there, and then my job was to basically sit in a hotel room while the conference was on, apart from the initial bit, and just have people come to me and just have a chat about, we've just had this interview, that interview, and so it was coaching really. So yeah, it was that was great fun, and I've gone there continually ever since. Right, so let's pick your story up from sort of later in the year, August, September. So you're into your new job then?
Yes, so we came back to Oman, and it was easy to come back to Oman because we'd been here before. So as you know, I was in Oman as a primary principal before I came to Kicks. So it was a little bit like coming home, but we were in Muscat this time. So yes, I stepped into a new role as mathematics coach. Um, when I had the interview with the head of school and the head of primary, I said, look, I've got this, I'm doing this maths work already. And they said, oh, we want to write our own. And I said, do you realize that that will take like 5 years? I was like, no, I'm not writing another one. We can use the one I already have. And they were all good with that because it really aligns really nicely with PYP and so on. And yeah, so that was my job for a year. And you know what? I really loved it. I loved not having the responsibility of leadership at that time. So all I did was not all I did, I was very busy, but it was a lot of coaching of teachers. It was working with teachers. It was working with students. It was making videos. It was assessment. It was really all of this teaching and learning, but really focused on mathematics and upskilling teachers. And that was my focus for the whole year. I did a lot of professional development in terms of staff meetings and as part of the planning times. And I loved it because there was no responsibility in terms of, with leadership roles comes a lot of other administrative tasks, a lot of management, a lot of dealing with parents. And so I did some work with parents in terms of maths because it's quite a shift in the way that we're learning, but I really enjoyed it. But what was really challenging for me is, and you know, in international schools now, we ask teachers in October if they want to stay for the next
Yeah.
year. And of
Yeah.
course, I started in August. We had all of this stuff going on in the background, and I did actually seek some help from Doug Walker, the
Oh
guy who had
yeah, he was
what
great, wasn't he?
he was good. And so I met with him regularly for a few months. And it was really challenging because I didn't know. I was like, I don't think I want to stay as the maths coach. I'd like to get back into leadership. But having to make that decision 2 months after you start a new job and with all the baggage that you've brought with you from being in a
Yeah.
war was really stressful. It was really stressful because I didn't know what to do. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I got headhunted for a role as a head of teaching and learning at another school here in Muscat. In the meantime, ABA offered me something, and it was really such a difficult decision to weigh everything up. And I just had to try and weigh up both options. And in the end, I took the role of head of teaching and learning at another school in Oman. But it wasn't easy.
No.
Really don't like that pressure that we have to decide so early on. And it seems to be getting earlier and earlier, especially for positions like yours, Peter, like as a physics teacher, those really specialized areas, those teachers are getting snapped up really early
Yeah.
in the year. And it's challenging to make a decision when you've only been at a school for 2 months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But anyway, so at that point you did say, I don't want to carry on at ABA. I'm going to take this other job. So you'd
Good.
actually got the job before you had to say that, or did you have to say no to ABA first
Yeah, they
and then
sort
this
of
job
came
came along?
They came at the same
Oh
time.
gosh.
And
Okay.
so, yes, oh gosh was right. And really, it was really hard because you're trying to weigh up, okay, this is this and this is this. So I'd worked with this head of school before for 7 years. So I kind of knew, I thought I knew what I was getting, but it turns out that you don't always know what you're
No,
getting.
you should be careful what you say at this point. There might be
Yes,
litigation if you say any
exactly.
more. No,
Exactly.
but I
No, I
mean,
wouldn't say more.
you
But
know,
it's the way it is,
yeah.
and we can cut that out if we don't think it's appropriate. Uh,
No,
but
I managed to get in there quick
challenging.
enough, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say any more.
No,
Um,
no.
but it's
There was
always a challenge.
a mismatch of expectation, I suppose. And, part of that would be, you use the word baggage, and that's very much what I know I've carried around and will continue to. But you were straight into a new role. You didn't do what I did and say,
No,
I'm not ready for that
and
yet
that,
because
and
you're way younger than me and well, you're a different person as well. So it's like,
well, yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah. And in hindsight, and that's why it's called hindsight, right? In hindsight, I probably would have made a different decision, but I didn't. But it's also where I am now and what I'm doing now would never have happened if I'd made a different decision. So you can't
Yeah,
keep looking
yeah,
back all the time. You have to keep looking forward and think, okay, these things happened for a reason. What's the learning? And I think the biggest challenge for me was I didn't trust my judgment anymore. It was really hard
mhm,
to, as a result of the war, really, it was like, I don't know what decision to make. I don't know. My head's all over the place, but I had to make a decision.
yeah,
And that's the challenge when you don't really trust your own judgment anymore. And that's just something I have to work through. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, don't be too hard on yourself there because, say you're being asked to change or to decide on a job within 2 months of starting it.
Yeah.
So, you were in a pretty,
Yes.
ridiculous situation. I say most people coming in new would have at least a 2-year contract or something, but I say because of the nature of the way that job worked, it wasn't. It was a 1-year thing. So you had to decide whether you wanted to stay
Yeah.
next year, which is,
Yeah.
unfortunate. But yeah. So it isn't a matter of it's the circumstances that you were in rather than anything else. I mean, I say, and who wouldn't have a difficulty with that decision, regardless of what happened in the past. So
Exactly. I
yeah,
think one thing I would add there also, and you sort of alluded to it, is there was a lot of jobs around, even though we found ourselves in that situation in May, and like you and I, we were trying to help the teachers find jobs. People on LinkedIn were amazing. They
yeah,
were messaging me. I didn't even know them, and they were saying, I don't have anything for you, but we're thinking of you. I mean, it made me feel good about people again because of course when you're in that situation in a war zone, and we were only in it for a short period of time, not like a lot of people around the world who are in these situations
yeah,
semi-permanently. And I think it restored my belief in human nature when all that good came from people on that
yeah,
platform of LinkedIn, that I didn't even know. And there were people saying, hey, would you like to come to Sweden? Hey, would you like to come here? Hey, and our teachers all got jobs, which was so great, right? They got jobs if
yeah.
they wanted them.
Pretty
And
much,
that was,
yeah, most of them, yeah, as far as I
yep,
know,
if they
and got
wanted
jobs
them.
that they actually, wanted. I mean, it's been quite interesting to follow some of the stories because I think for a lot of them it was, well, we'll do this for a couple of years, we'll go there, and they've done a couple of years, but quite a few have moved on. Some moved on after a year. This is all very understandable, and I've lost track of others. But I
Mm,
say, given the nature of the transition, it's hardly surprising. Of course, some people were moving on to other jobs anyway. Some on our evacuation
yeah,
bus were actually
yeah,
not going to come back anyway. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's a couple of cases I can think of where actually they only spent 1 or 2 years at their next school, the one that they'd had lots of time to get ready for.
Yes.
and again, that might be just, the way it was, or it might have been another effect like we had where, you have that, call it loss of confidence or indecision or all these sorts of things, which is
Finding
again,
finding
just
your place again,
yeah. And
because
I mean,
we were really settled in Khartoum, like we were really enjoying it.
yeah, I
And the
know.
school was amazing. And it was just like, oh, the things we can do here. And then it's all taken away.
And the other thing that feeds that, and this is what I think it would have been for all the teachers, not just the ones that were leaving anyway, it's that lack of closure at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That opportunity, which is always a sort of roller coaster of emotions anyway for those staying and those leaving and everything else. But everybody was sort of denied that.
Mm.
And not, I'm going to mention it, not to mention, which I am now, the financial hit that people took. Because I mean, basically, we weren't paid. We had like a 25% of something a month salary, and that was it. So people were 3 or 4 months salary down, as well as, people who were leaving, not getting those bonus type things. And this is a huge thing. So yeah, that was difficult for people, apart from the fact you've lost your job, so it was just
Yeah.
one thing, and this is what you'd have felt
Yeah.
strongly. So let's move on now to the following year.
Mhm.
So I've already done that little bit. So I had the search thing going on. So that was January. February, depths of the British winter. It was horrendous. So very wet, I seem to remember. Um, some dog walking going on, things that we had a dog by then. And yeah, it got to March, and I think Easter, it was Easter. I had another, I was still tutoring this class and some individuals as well. And then there was an opportunity came up for a week course over the Easter period, like an Easter revision course. And I said, "Oh, I'll do that." And it was 4 hours a day. This is all online with a bunch of kids at the other end for a week. So you did, 4 hours all morning basically. Um, so I did that, and that was sometime in March. And then fairly soon after that, we came here to France, where I am now, with half the family. So we came out here. And as soon as I arrived here, which is a place we've come back to for holidays and everything for the last nearly 30
Mm.
years now, it's always been the bolt hole and the sort of place where we don't work, right? And I
Yeah.
still had some of this tutoring going on. And the sort of coming to the house, seeing the pictures on the wall again, these, all of these things, um, just thought, I don't want to do tutoring anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm just not going to do it.
Mm.
I just went, "Pfft."
Mm.
And I said, I need just a
Yeah.
complete break. So I did. And so I just resigned from that. I did the week thing, and then, but that sort of finished me off. So I didn't follow on with the other class. And they had to find another online tutor, the poor things. But anyway, I just had a meltdown, basically, lost it. Um,
Mm.
and so then I went into a sort of 3 or 4 weeks later. We were still here, started to enjoy it. And then I had a contact from somebody, she won't mind me saying if she ever listens to this, Marta, from Hermitage School Hermitage International School in Paris, just outside of Paris at Maison Lafitte. And I'd been on LinkedIn a lot, like you had, and she contacted me through LinkedIn. I did know her a little bit from previous ASA when we had ASA head things in COVID, because she used to be a head in Africa as well. And she got in touch and said, this is through LinkedIn, and said, "Do you happen to know any physics and TOK teachers? We've got a physics and TOK slot open, and she said we're just desperate. We can't find anybody. Do you know of anybody? Any of your previous school people still not got a job, or anything like that?" And I sort of I said, let's have a, well, that's right. Just before this, we'd had a debrief together because she left Africa, an African school, under very difficult circumstances. Basically, it was worse than ours, I think, because there was a threat on her school because of a coup. All
Mm.
very familiar, isn't it? So the owners
Yeah.
of her school were a sort of political target, if you like, of the coup leaders, which meant that
Mm.
her and her husband, who was the financial guy for the school, were under direct threat. They had to get out very rapidly, like really rapidly, like just in a few hours of receiving threats. So she sort of had to get out. So, and anyway, this was all in like November or something. So she
Yeah.
had to, anyway. So she had a war story basically. So we're on LinkedIn.
Well,
We had a chat about that. We got onto Zoom and had a good chat about that and just talked about each other's experiences, sort of therapeutic, I suppose. And then it was either before or after that, I can't remember. She mentioned this possible job, and so I just said, I don't know of anybody, but I'd like to do it.
mm.
And it was like,
Yeah.
really? So, do you want to come out and see the school? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So we're actually going back to Coventry that week, so I couldn't go out then. So I went back home,
Mm.
a few days there, then went back out to Paris on Eurostar and went to see the school and loved it and everything. Had an interview, which was just great fun. I love being interviewed. So it's always entertaining if there's no
One
massive
of the
pressure.
only ones.
Well, there's no pressure. So yeah. So anyway, came back, got an offer, talked about it a little bit to the family, and yeah, thought
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go for it. So I went.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And it
so
worked.
that
It's great.
so
Good
that's what
timing.
so from April onwards, really, it
Mm.
was my
Mm.
mind shifted to that, and that gave me a purpose, if you like. So I
But,
felt a bit like I'd gone from, the sort of a bit of a meltdown to a purpose again, which is what Linda said I was lacking for the last year, and what I was doing is
uh,
flip-flopping about, which is very true because I was. So anyway,
but sometimes, given sometimes you have to flip flop, right? Especially when you've
well,
been
yeah, well, I did.
hard for such
Yeah.
a long time. It just everyone deals with situations differently, right?
So yes. So go on, take it right. What about you then? So we're now in January,
So
February.
yeah, so January, so we're still in the first year, aren't we? We're still in the first year, or
Mm.
we've moved on. Yeah, we're
No,
still in
no,
the first
first
year.
year, yeah.
So what was really great was my kids came out to Oman for Christmas. They were like, Mum, we want to come home because they were spent a lot of their youth, I guess, here in Oman, going to school and traveling. So that was so good. It was so good to have the kids here. And unfortunately, we got some bad news about my father that he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. So that added to, on top of everything else, and trying to do the counselling with Doug and trying to sort out whether now I'm taking this new job. Should I take the new job? Blah, blah.
Mm.
Then that. So it was just one more sort of thing to try and deal with, which was really hard because my dad's like the stalwart of the family and yeah, I'm probably am a daddy's girl. They talk about, mummy's boys and daddy's girls. I probably am a daddy's girl. So that was really hard. And so we're sort of managing that from then till now, which has been not it's been up had its ups and downs, but that just added one more thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I kept up with the maths coach position. I was asked to go. I went to that year. The company I worked for, Professional Learning International, we had our conference in UWC in Singapore. So I did a pre-conference there about change leadership. Making change because I've done that in quite a few schools now. And then I presented some other workshops throughout the 3 days at UWC, which was great. And I just picked up more work with Professional Learning International in terms of concept-based inquiry, in terms of mathematics. So started doing some coaching calls online and getting my foot in the door there. So Rachel's been amazing, really. Just she said, "Don't worry, I've got work for you." And so I started doing that as well as the maths. And because it's the same company, obviously, it was really good to be able to do the work with the teachers, with the students, and then feed that back into the written curriculum and make the changes and so on. So it worked out pretty well in the
Yeah,
end. Yeah.
good.
And yes, so that was up
Okay.
until June. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, that's sort of the end of our first year, isn't it? The first year, the post evacuation.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
I think
thinking we
it
have a
would be,
pause.
yeah, we should have a pause. But I'm thinking it's still fair to say where we live in Oman, we can actually see the airport from here. And when you talked about planes, in
Hmm.
that first year here, every time a plane flew over, Paul and I'd look at each other. Every time we heard a helicopter, because the helicopter pad's on the other side. And then the kid upstairs used to bounce his basketball. I'd be like, what's that noise? And it was just the whole year. You think you'll get used to it, but it takes a really long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah, no. And let's say, should we pause at this
Yeah.
point and
I-
maybe we'll do another one, but I'll,
Yes.
I'll stop recording now
Stop
and
recording.
say thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking us back.
It's
And
good to be able
so
to talk about it.
life after an
Yeah.
evacuation. Okay, I will now stop recording.
Okay.